What is going on, Raiders? Soda Dragon here. Welcome and hope you guys are doing well. So today is all about Maranix here. So she's the new October fusion and I got a chance to test her out. So I will give you my opinion on her as to whether or not you should fuse her and under what scenarios you should fuse her. So guys, first up, we're going to look over her kit and I'll give you my opinions on her skills. And secondly, I'm going to show you some test runs of her in different areas of this game. So I'll start off with her A1 here, Reaper's Due. Attacks one enemy 2 times. Has a 50% chance to place up to 2 extra hits if the target is under a hex debuff. The chance to place each extra hit is calculated individually per hit. Damage based on attack. So we have a double hitting A1 with the chance to hit up to 4 times. Now player has confirmed this is the maximum number that this A1 can hit if you proc those extra hits. So you're gonna get either 2 hits on a non-hexed opponent or up to 4 hits on a hexed opponent. So guys, what do I think about the damage of the A1? Well, we don't have the damage multipliers unfortunately, so I'm just gonna give you my overall impressions of how much damage is being done. So for the A1, when it only hits twice, I think the damage is modest. So it's not bad. It's not weak, it's not strong, it's just modest. But when you get those extra hits in there, yes, the damage does rack up. So it becomes a strong A1 if you get those extra hits. But if you're only working on that double hitter, let's say the enemy is not hexed, then you have a modest hitting A1. So not weak, but not strong. Now, multi-hitting A1s are great against the Fire Knight. So I'm going to show you a Fire Knight 25 run using her. Now, she's not the best for the Fire Knight. I'm just going to tell you that outright. So you're not getting speed runs with her probably. But that being said, you can use her. So I'll show you a team that you can build around her. But yeah, that double hitting A1 is definitely good for taking out that Fire Knight shield. So it does have some utility. And of course, if you can get that hex on, then this A1 is going to hit more. All right, guys, onto the A2 here. Excruciate. Attacks all enemies. Has a 75% chance, bookable to 100, of placing a hex debuff and a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Damage based on attack. On a 4-turn cooldown, bookable to 3. Alright guys, here's where the trouble starts in building out your Maranix. Why? Because we have a very useful debuff here in an AoE. AoE decreased defense. When do you ever not want AoE decreased defense, right? Very, very useful. Plus you get the hex in there too. But now you're being pulled in 2 different directions. What are those directions? Well, we don't see anything here about this debuff being irresistible. What does this mean? You need to build it with accuracy if you want to land these debuffs. What does that mean? You're not building her for as much damage because you're trying to build 2 stats instead of 1. If it was pure damage, obviously all we care about is the attack, plus crit damage, crit rate, stuff like that. But if it was pure support, all we care about is accuracy, right? But on the other hand, if you want to try to build both, you're going to have to sacrifice. Right? There's no way you can build as much accuracy in a hybrid build as you would in a pure support build. And vice versa, going pure damage. There's no way you would build as much pure damage in a hybrid build as you would in a build that all you're doing is solely focused on the damage. So this is going to be the difficulty in building her. So for this build, I pretty much went pure damage on her with that Savage set, trying to ignore as much defense as possible and do as much damage as possible. So I also got the Helm Smasher Mastery as well, just going for pure damage. So how hard does this A2 hit? Well, the nice thing is she has 2 AoEs, but as far as this A2, it hits fairly hard. I wouldn't say strong, but maybe above average, I'd put it that way. So it hits fairly hard when she's built out for damage. So overall, what do I think about this A2? Well, there's good damage here plus good debuffs. So that might sound like overall a good thing, but it's not. If it was weak damage, or basically all her skills had weak damage, then we're not really pulled in 2 different directions at all. I would say don't even waste time on the damage because she won't do damage. But the thing is, she can do some damage. She does have that potential, but she also has a lot of useful debuffs. See, if it was the other way around as well, if she didn't have any useful debuffs, then I say, yeah, go ahead, pure damage. But we're pulled in 2 different directions. So I would say, I guess either way you want to build her out for this particular A2, for this one skill, either way works. Whether you want to build it for more accuracy or whether or not you want to build for damage. Either way works. Now, when we get to the other skills, certain builds tend to fare better. But as far as this A2 here, yeah, either way you want to build her, either support, hybrid, or you want to build it for pure damage, the A2 will serve you well. All right, guys, on to the A3 here, Inexorable End. Attacks all enemies. Will ignore unkillable buffs and shield buffs if targets are under a hex debuff. Places an unkillable buff on this champion for 1 turn if this attack kills an enemy without a hex debuff. Places an unkillable buff for 2 turns instead if this attack kills an enemy under a hex debuff. Damage based on attack. On a 6-turn cooldown, bookable to 4. Alright guys, so firstly, how hard is this A3 hit? Well, I would categorize it as strong. So if you have the right gear, you can make this A3 hit pretty hard, and it does seem to hit harder than the A2. So if you're looking at pure damage, you would prioritize the A3 here over the A2. Now guys, I mentioned in my first impressions video of Maranix that I didn't really like how this Unkillable procced on this A3 here. It procs when she kills somebody. So for 1 turn when she kills somebody without a hex debuff, and for 2 turns when she kills somebody with a hex debuff. Now, I don't think that's the ideal conditions for Unkillable to proc. What is? When you're close to death. So the best examples would be somebody like Skull Crown. She has a really great Unkillable that procs right before she's going to die. And same thing with Leorius. Really good. Now, Black Knight does have one as well. I don't think the conditions are the best case scenario to make it that useful for Black Knight. But he's better than her. I mean, when is the scenario when you need Unkillable to proc? Right before you're going to die. That's the perfect scenario. That's the perfect condition. Well, what do we see here? When she kills somebody, that is the scenario when this Unkillable procs. But think about it, is that really when you want Unkillable to proc? Like you've done your AoE, you wiped out a few people on the opposing team, and then you're thinking to yourself, man, I really want Unkillable right now. No. We want Unkillable when we're taking damage and almost gonna die. So they're kind of trying to do something different here. They don't want to be like Skull Crown. They don't want to be like Lair. So they're saying, well, let's do something different and let's make it when she kills somebody, which makes it very unuseful. As I mentioned, even Black Knight, he has to take a certain amount of damage before the Unkillable procs. It's not necessarily where he's close to death, but it's still better than this. So I would say this is not as useful a scenario for this Unkillable to proc. Now, can it still be useful sometimes? Yes, it is. It is still useful sometimes. I'm not going to say it's useless, but this is not the ideal condition for it to proc. And guys, this is why I mentioned before, this champion really can't be built for pure support. Why? Because a few of her skills depend on her killing people. So it's not just her debuffing or just her being there or using her skills. She needs to actually kill people for a few of the benefits of her skills to proc. So that's unfortunate. That means we cannot build her pure support purely for her debuffs. So unfortunately, you're going to have to build her either hybrid, so some accuracy and some damage, or pure damage. Now, of course, an option is to use her for pure damage and set her up with another AoE Hex champion. So kind of like pair her with another AoE Hex champion. That's an option, but then you kind of look at her kit and you're like, man, all those debuffs are wasted. I mean, think about it. She has AoE decreased defense, AoE Hex. Well, we're going to be in another champ for that AoE Hex, and maybe another champ for the AoE decreased defense. Well, then why do you have it? So you kind of pulled in different directions. If you want to use for pure damage, it's like the debuffs on the A2 are wasted. Now, it does okay damage, the A2 in and of itself. It's not like it does no damage. So you can't, yeah, you're going to use it for damage, but still, it's like the debuffs, the effects of the A2 are kind of wasted if you're using it for pure damage. But again, if you want to use her for a hybrid accuracy / damage, you're not going to get the best of both worlds. It's going to be a sacrifice of both worlds. All right, guys, on to the passive here, Death's Collector. Resets the cooldown of the inexorable end skill whenever this champion kills an enemy under a Hex debuff. Increases the champion's attack by 5% for each enemy under a Hex debuff. So guys, remember when I said you really shouldn't use her for pure support because some of her abilities are wasted? So here would be another ability of hers that would be wasted if you use her for pure support. So if you use her for pure support, purely for her debuffs and no damage, you're not going to get the cooldown reduction of the A3 here that only procs when she kills somebody, right? And what do we know about the A3? Well, that Unkillable buff only procs if she kills somebody. So really two abilities of hers, that Unkillable buff and the A3 cooldowns being reset, proc when she kills somebody. So it would be such a waste, to be honest, to use her for pure support because two important abilities of hers don't happen unless she kills people. Now, of course, guys, I'm not saying you can't use her for pure support. Of course you can. Put her in high accuracy gear. You can use it for A2, that decreased defense, and AoE Hex. And yeah, you can use another Hex-based nuker to take advantage of the Hex that she laid down in the first place. So somebody like Thea or somebody like Ruel that hit pretty hard. So of course you can use her for her debuffs, that decreased defense and AoE Hex if you want. But should you? And would it kind of be a waste of her kit if you did so? Sure, it would kind of be a waste, but you know what? If you got her and you needed her just for that role, of course, why not use her for that role? I'm not saying you should never use her for that role. I'm just saying some of her abilities are wasted in purely a support role. Because if she's not killing people, then she doesn't get the Unkillable buff from her A3, and she's also not getting the cooldown reduced for the A3 to reuse it again. So let me talk about the second part of her passive where her attack increases for each enemy under Hex debuff. In practice, it's not that noticeable. Even in something like the Spider's Den, where she's putting a lot of Hex on a lot of enemies, it's not very noticeable. I'll put it that way. And some of you guys, maybe more perceptive than me, might seriously notice it, and that's fine. But for me personally, it wasn't that noticeable. So basically, this part of her passive doesn't seem like it's a game changer. It doesn't turn her from like an average champ to a godly champ if a lot of enemies are under hex. All of a sudden, she's like a ridiculous damage dealer. It doesn't seem like that's happening, at least in practice. So take something like the Spider's Den. She's getting a lot of hex on a lot of enemies and getting a lot of increased attack from it, but how useful is it in that kind of extreme scenario with a ton of enemies? Probably the most enemies you'll ever face in a kind of dungeon, right? You're not gonna really need her to really be killing off in an AoE fashion all the spiderlings. Why? Because the fastest runs, at least for late game spider, are with HP burn and maybe instantly exploding those HP burns. It's not through pure damage. Now I'm going to show you a run where we do use her for that reason, that capacity, just to try her out. So she doesn't really add much. Now early game, here's where I think she could potentially help a lot of people out in the Spider's Den, because really for the early game, one of the strategies is wiping out those spiderlings, just doing damage to them and wiping them out. So yes, I think for early game, she can help you out in the Spider's Den, but the late game strategies for the Spider's Den don't really utilize an attacker like this. Either we're going for that main spider with enemy max HP skills, or we're going for all the spiders with HP burns and exploding those HP burns. So she doesn't really do either of those, which is why she's really not the best spider champ, at least late game. All right, guys, next up, let's look at her base stats. So as far as the HP, it's a good amount for an attack-based damage dealer. I mean, which she is. We're not expecting a tank here. She's not an HP-based damage dealer. So 15,000 is not bad. Attack 1400, very, very good base attack here. So the defense 1000, not bad. Honestly, the HP and the defense are not bad for this type of champion, the damage dealer. Speed is good, crit damage is good, a resistant accuracy is fine. So I would say overall, good attack, quite high base attack. Other stats are fine. So guys, what can she do? Well, firstly, on 12-3 Brutal, she can be your campaign farm. Now, if you want to farm Nightmare, let's say 12-6 Nightmare, she can do that. Although she doesn't do it consistently for me with the gear I have her in. But I think she definitely can if you have her in the right gear. So she could be your Nightmare campaign farmer, but I definitely think she can be your Brutal campaign farmer. So let's just watch a run right now. She'll do this super easy. No problem at all. Just throw out the AoEs and you're good to go. Just wreck people with those AoEs. Nice 12-second run. Now, can she be your Minotaur 15 farming tank? Well, let's see. So this is Savage gear I have her in, which I'll show you guys later. But you see, she hits pretty hard. Barely, barely. Let's try this again and see how close she gets. And just wrecking those waves. I mean, she's making really good time. Alright, got the cooldown reduced on that A3. Man, a lot of hits in there. Can she do it? Just barely again. Just barely again. So guys, it seems like you probably could build out to consistently farm the Minotaur if you need her for that. Alright guys, next let's see her in stage 23 of the Ice Golem. Now here my Theodore can already solo it, so we're seeing what extra she brings to the table with regard to damage, and especially if that Unkillable procs enough to really save her. So let's see what happens. Stage 23. So Theodore is going to bring the damage to the poisons. Oh, she's already dead. Reflect damage. Alright, it did not proc fast enough. Alright guys, maybe stage 21 is going to be better for her. Let's give it a shot. Let's see if we can get that Unkillable to proc fast enough to save her. There you go, it proc right there. Nice. The Theodore is going to bring the slow burn damage to those poisons. We need her for that instant damage. She doesn't have Unkillable right now, but she's a strong affinity, and she's dead. All right. All right, guys, let's try stage 19. Now, yes, I could bring in other champs to kind of protect her, but isn't that the point of the Unkillable, to keep her alive? And she's built out for damage, like max damage from my account. So let's see what happens. Come on, keep yourself alive. Reflect damage, come on. Proc that Unkillable. No, she killed herself. Ah, she killed everybody, but she killed herself. She did not proc that Unkillable. I guess the damage affects her before that Unkillable procs, because that Unkillable should have proc. That was the A3 that she used. She killed someone under Hex debuff that should have proc that Unkillable on her. So yeah, Theodore's going crazy. Forgot about her a long time ago, but that Unkillable should have procced. All right, guys, so big point here, just in case you didn't see it, it looks like she actually can take damage, and that can actually kill her off before she procs that Unkillable on herself with the A3. So in a scenario with reflected damage, the damage reflects back to her and affects her, that is, kills her before she gets a chance to proc that Unkillable, which is really unfortunate, and probably something in her kit that they should change. All right, guys, next up, let's try her out in the Dragon's Lair stage 25. Now, I know what some of you guys are saying. Well, why don't you bring in a support champ to protect her? And I can bring in a CC champ or something like that. But really, I think that kind of misses the point with her. The point of her kit is that she has Unkillable baked in. And that Unkillable buff doesn't have a cooldown on it. It's not like it only procs every 3 turns. That can literally proc every time she uses her A3. And how often can she use her A3? Every single turn if she kills somebody, thanks to her passive. So she can literally be going, using her A3 continuously in a row and reprocking that Unkillable buff on herself. That is literally possible within the logic of her kit. Now, does it actually work in practice? At least on these higher levels, it doesn't seem like it yet. Maybe someone can use her in the lower levels and everything would work out perfectly like I just said. She'd use her AoE, kill off a few people, proc that Unkillable buff, and then her next turn, she can just reuse that A3 again because it's cooldown by the passive, kill a few more people, proc that Unkillable buff, etc, etc. So yes, maybe that is possible for the lower levels, but as far as these higher levels, it doesn't seem like it's going to be that useful, at least for us endgame players working on a high level dungeon. So let's see how she does on stage 20 here. Of course, Theodore can already do it by himself, but let's see what she adds to things. Can she last long enough? She didn't kill anybody, she did not get an Unkillable buff, and she's dead. So I guess these high level dungeons, it really doesn't seem like she has enough going for her. Now, can you bring in another Hex champion? Yes, you can. Can you bring in a protective champion for her? Yes, you can. But once again, then what's the point of that Unkillable buff? It doesn't really protect her when it needs to. It would be great if it just protected her like right before she was going to die, like Leorius, like Skullcrown. It would be great if that happened. And of course, once again, Theodore is just completely forgotten about. He's just going off, doing his own thing. Like, what? I had someone supporting me? What are you talking about? So, yes, it would have been much, much better if that procs consistently. But it doesn't. It doesn't. That condition of her killing somebody for that Unkillable to proc is a terrible condition for that type of buff. Well, guys, let's try stage 20. Let's see if that Unkillable can proc here, especially when it needs to, that is to protect her. There you go. We got one Unkillable proc. Nice. All right, now we're seeing it proc more often. This is nice. This is nice. Now for the boss, completely unnecessary. Should probably get wrecked, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at this point. Multiple hits, nice. It's doing good damage. Maybe she'll last to the end. It's not because of hers. It's because Theodore is killing the boss off so quick. Will she last until the end? Come on, Theodore. Save your teammate. Come on. There you go. We got her to last till the end. Let's try this, guys. Stage 13. Can she do it on her own? She's a strong affinity here. Let's see. Come on. Can that Unkillable proc enough? Okay. Okay. I guess this is too low of a stage for her, but yeah, she's just wrecking this stage. Okay. All right. As far as stage 13, she is a killer. Why not, guys? Let's try stage 17 here. Let's put her through the ringer. See what she can do. A lot of people bringing their full teams. Like 4 people supporting her. No. We want to see what she can do by herself. Especially since she has an Unkillable buff. That's the point. Can she wreck at least one person with that A3 every time she uses it? Then she'll get that Unkillable buff like you just saw. Oh. She's doing pretty good. She's doing pretty good. It's stage 17. Just need some extra hits off that A1. It's hitting pretty hard. Come on. Got some weak hits there. Nice. Extra hits off that A1. Come on. Come on. She can do it. She can do it. She can do it. Almost there. She can do it. Come on. Come on. She can do it. Come on. Come on. Come on. Oh! Almost soloing 17. So yeah, she couldn't do it this time, but you see how her kit's supposed to work. She's supposed to hex people, kill them off with the A3 proc that Unkillable on herself, and cool down the A3 again through her passive, so she's able to reuse it again. So that's what's supposed to happen. And yes, it can happen sometimes in these lower level dungeons, but for the upper level dungeons, I mean, forget about it. She's not going to be super useful. All right, guys, let's give it a shot. Spider 25. Now, she wouldn't be the best choice for the Spider's Den, at least high-level Spider's Den's runs, because she doesn't have enemy max HP skills, she doesn't have turn meter decreasing skills, she doesn't have AoE HP burn or HP burn explosion skills, so she really has nothing that we're in particular looking for a high-level Spider's Den run. But what she does have is a passive that increases her attack depending on how many people are under hex, and here we see the most amount of enemies that we can fight in a dungeon. So she has the most potential here to increase her attack. Now she does do a pretty good job of killing the spiderlings with that A3, especially when they're under those hex debuffs. Like right now she would. Now they're dying for HP burn, but ideally, you know, that type of situation, she does do a pretty good job of taking care of those spiderlings, and she does proc that Unkillable, it seems like, often, which is good. But if you have Ultimate Death Knight, you don't really need her to proc that Unkillable, because he is always going to be the spiderling target because of his passive, no matter what. As long as he's alive, he's the target of the spiderlings. So not a speed run here. We don't have any HP burn explosion champs, but they can get it done. As I mentioned, we only need 2 champs here, Ultimate Death Knight and an AoE HP burn champ, and that is good enough. Now anything extra we add hopefully would make the run go faster, and that's all we're really asking from them, since all we need is those 2 champs to complete the run. So this run with Ultimate Death Knight and ACOTH here is about 3 minutes. So let's see if anything is added by bringing Maranix in here. Is she going to increase our clear time or not? Okay, unfortunately she hurt us a little bit by killing some of the spiderlings that did have that HP burn on them. But she is doing extra damage, so she actually did help us clear a Spider 25 a little bit faster. Now, would I recommend her as a Spider champ? Probably not. Typically, you don't want to kill the spiderlings in your high-level Spider's Den runs. You want them to die from the HP burn and therefore affect that main spider, take down the main spider's HP. But as you saw here, I mean, we got a pretty good runtime. A little bit shorter than just Ultimate Death Knight and ACOTH by themselves. So you can't argue with the results, right? The time is shorter, period. Whether or not we think it should have turned out that way or not, it did. So not bad for Spider 25. Now guys, try out on Fire Knight 25. Let's see how she does. Now this is not the best affinity for her, but for Allure here, it is the best affinity. And we definitely need that turn meter reduction against the boss. So it's kind of like a little bit of a trade-off. We'll see how she does though. All right, got to the boss under 25 seconds, not bad. Let's see how she does when we're actually at the boss. As I mentioned, not the best as far as affinity, but Allure here is going to be the best affinity for her. We're doing okay so far. Now that we've got that decreased speed on the boss, everything should be good. So at this point, what is she bringing to the table as far as a Fire Knight team? Not much, not much. She did help a little bit against the waves, but not a ton against the actual boss himself, besides that multi-hitting A1 to get down the boss's shield. Now Renegade here will keep on hurting herself with her sacrificial ritual. So you need to kill the boss off before she kills herself off. See, maybe she's got like 1 or 2 left and she's going to kill herself. So we definitely need her to not kill herself so she can keep on reducing the cooldowns of everybody. But she can't do that in an unlimited fashion. But the boss is going down pretty soon. All right, Fire Knight, 25, 2 minutes and 13 seconds. Not too bad. So is she great for Fire Knight? No, no, no. Bring in another enemy max HP champ like Royal Guard. He would be great. No, Maranix is not great here. Though you can add her into the team. And yes, she can do something. But is she doing something over and above other champs? Probably not. Now guys, as far as Faction Wars, she is pretty good. On mostly full auto, you guys can see 5 minutes and 46 seconds with only 2 champs here. So we got 1 control champ and 1 damage champ. So you can bring in other champs like support champs if you want those 3 stars. The point here is not 3 stars. The point is, really, can this pair get you through? And yes, they can. Actually, Visits can do it by herself, by the way. So she is going to provide you all the control that you need. But Maranix here, yeah, she does give a good amount of damage to help you get through those waves fairly quickly. Now, once you get to the boss, unless you have someone to revive her, I mean, obviously she's not going to live. But really, she definitely can help you with the damage aspect, getting you through those enemy waves. Even up against the boss, she does do a good amount of damage. You guys can see here, the majority of the damage coming from Maranix. All right, guys, on to some arena fights. Now, Playroom did say that Maranix here would be good against arena opponents and against enemy waves, so let's see how she does. So unfortunately, these aren't realistic scenarios necessarily. This is all test server footage. But here we're using Ruel to Hex and using her for basically the nuker position. So our A3 here is going to be the strongest. And you see, I mean, it does pretty good damage. I'm not going to say like overwhelmingly good. I'm not going to say she's going to be the next Tronda or she's the next big nuker. She's not. You guys know I don't overhype things. She's a decent nuker. She can serve you in that role, but she's not going to be the next big thing as far as nukers in the arena. Now, you guys might see some ridiculous numbers pop out of some people's accounts, but the thing is, they have ridiculous accounts. Some people's accounts are so OP, they can make any champ in this game pretty much hit ridiculously hard. So just be careful. You want to have a good idea of whether or not you can ever replicate something. And for certain people on their accounts, no, you could never replicate it, and that includes me. So guys, here's an example of Maranix ignoring Unkillable with her A3 when the enemy is hexed. Now, we don't normally see it that much in PvE, but here's where we get a chance to see it. So obviously, Leoris is going to proc that Unkillable when he's close to death, but because he's hexed, we're going to see the A3 of Maranix basically ignore it, and he's going to die. So good damage numbers, and yes, we did ignore it. Alright guys, onto my Maranix build right here. So really I'm trying to maximize her damage, so I have her in a Savage set and a Cruel set. Onto her total stats. So I have her HP at 35,000, I have the attack at 6,200, defense 2,300, speed 190, crit rate 102%, crit damage 152%, resist 149, and accuracy 152. Onto her masteries. So down the offense tree here, I do have Helm Smasher, so I have a 50% chance of ignoring 25% of the target's defense. This is in addition to the amounts ignored by the sets that she's wearing, so it all adds together. And down the support tree, I did go for a few masteries here that did increase her accuracy just a little bit, so hopefully she can land some of those debuffs that decrease defense and that hex when she does happen to use that A2. Okay guys, so overall, what do I think about her? Well, I think overall she's going to be a B. What does she do well? She's a good damage dealer. She's a decent damage dealer, and in the right conditions, she's actually quite good. So if you set her up well, decrease defense, increase attack, with that hex, if you set her up well, she can do pretty good damage in the arena, but she's going to need that setup because you don't want her to be the all-in-one champion, the debuffer slash damage dealer. Now, what doesn't she do that well? In my opinion, she doesn't proc that Unkillable buff in a reliable enough way or a consistent enough way. Really, you want that Unkillable buff to proc right before you're going to die to keep you alive, right? but she procs it when she kills somebody else. So it's not the best scenario, and it keeps her from being really an all support champ if you want to use her for that, because really her skills aren't made for that. You're not taking advantage of her whole skill set if you really make her for all support. You're not going to get the unkillable buff on her if she's not killing people, and you're not going to get the cooldown reduced on the A3 if you're not killing people from her passive. So really you need her to kill people to make the most of her kit. But if you don't care about making the most of your kit, if you literally just need an AoE decreased defense champ or an AoE hex champ, then yeah, you got her right here. She can do the job just fine. All right, guys, make sure to let me know in the comments what you think about this champion and if you happen to be going for her this month. And if this video has been helpful to you, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. It's free to you and it ensures that you don't miss out on any of my new content. But lastly, guys, I'm going on vacation soon, so I won't be able to upload as much as I normally do. But don't worry, I'm going to try to upload every week. I mean, at least once, hopefully more than that. So guys, don't forget about me. I haven't stopped playing Raid or anything like that. I'm just on vacation and I definitely will be back. So thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.